Hey everybody, and welcome to the 5 Bytes podcast, which of course, as always, is brought to you by my sponsors, and that includes Numescent, the inventors of the first and only cloud-native container management platform for Windows desktops, and also brought to you by Master Packager, an application packaging software that helps you build packages that end users love, enterprises want, and the Windows OS needs. If you enjoy the show each week, you have these awesome sponsors to thank. And now for some news. The Verge reported this week that Microsoft is now allowing consumers, and that is consumers only, not enterprises, to enroll into its extended security updates free of charge for Windows 10 as Windows 10 end of support looms large. It's arriving on October 14th of this year. However, there is a bit of a catch. Consumers will have 3 options to get the ESUs on their personal Windows 10 PCs, and the free option involves enabling Windows Backup to sync your settings and folders to the cloud. Windows Backup uses OneDrive, so while it's possible to stay below the 5 gigs of free storage you get, if you have lots of files stored locally in the Documents folder, for example, then you need to purchase additional space for Windows Backup to work fully. That's the catch for free extended updates on Windows 10. Now, the other 2 options to get ESUs on Windows 10 involve paying the $30 fee for a year of updates or redeeming 1,000 Microsoft reward points, which that was news to me. I didn't know that was even an option. So if you've been very loyal to Bing, perhaps, maybe you have 1,000 Microsoft reward points to cash in. Microsoft is adding an enrollment wizard to Windows 10 in July that will have these 3 options available to you, and once you select an option and follow the on-screen steps, your PC will automatically be enrolled. Consumers will only get extended security updates for Windows 10 until October 13th, 2026, so it appears there's not going to be the same option as for Enterprise, where you could opt in for the ESUs for 3 years, so this is just a 1-year reprieve. I don't know how I would feel about this. On the consumer side, I'm not in the situation that I need to rely on any of those extended security updates. My hardware is compatible with Windows 11. But yeah, guess I'd be a little bit worried or concerned about what they might do with some of the data available in the backup. I know there's probably, that's just like paranoia because I'm sure there's, I guess, legalese where they can't monetize your data. But that would be a bit of a concern for me. I mean, there's no such thing as free. Granted, as The Verge suggests, chances are most people are not going to have only 5 gigs that they want to back up, so really it's probably not free for most people. HPE Discover was held this week, and there were several announcements, but maybe just to focus on a few so I don't go long form like I do on a lot of the different conference-related episodes. But they announced next generation HPE private cloud. And some of the key promises of the next generation in this case is a federated architecture, developer system, air-gapped deployments, and multi-tenancy. HPE CEO Antonio Neri stated during the keynote, quote, "With our multi-tenancy capabilities, enterprises will be able to securely isolate tenants, manage resource quotas, and streamline operations. With HP Private Cloud AI, you have the foundation to run your modern AI workloads with confidence." End quote. They also announced a greater partnership with NVIDIA and offerings in their cloud solutions that utilize NVIDIA products. Perhaps the biggest announcement made was around agentic AI in GreenLake Intelligence, which promises to spread AI agents around your network, examining every nook and cranny. That means they can spot problems and suggest efficiencies to real human IT administrators, according to techfinitive.com. HPE says that GreenLake Copilot Beta will be available in the 3rd quarter of this year and will arrive as part of ongoing updates to their GreenLake offering. Yeah, I've definitely seen a lot of positivity around HP laptops and hardware recently, and suggestions. I know I reported on a previous episode of the podcast, but suggestions that they seem to be a vendor that's utilizing AI well. So, interested to see how they further develop this. Another vendor who held a conference this week was Cisco with Cisco Live 2025. They also had some NVIDIA-related announcements too, such as the fact that they have the only third-party processors to be used in NVIDIA's Spectrum X switch. And like HPE and pretty much every vendor in recent memory having events, bar Apple in their recent WWDC event, they led their event at Cisco Live with AI-related announcements, suggesting with AI, Cisco's growth is uncapped. There is so much data to be gleaned across networks running Cisco kit, and it appears they are dead set to capitalize with AI capabilities on their smart switches, for example, also with their enhanced security products such as firewalls and more. I also saw that they announced they have put in a pretty large investment in some AI companies as well around some smart network routing. So no great surprise from HPE Discover or Cisco Live really that there's a keen focus on AI. So in the past, where maybe at a Cisco Live event, there would have been an awful lot of focus primarily on their network products and their core networking products like their switches. I mean, it was still somewhat the case, but it was very heavily influenced with AI as well. And if you'd like to read about what the announcements were at HPE Discover or at Cisco Live, I'll share links to the stories that I used for reference for this episode over at 5bytespodcast.com with episode 392. Citrix has warned that a vulnerability in their NetScaler appliances tracked as CVE-2025-6543 on MITRE and internally as CTX 694788, which is a critical flaw impacting NetScaler ADC and NetScaler gateways, can be triggered by unauthenticated remote requests, leading the appliance to go offline, and this is being actively exploited in the wild, causing devices to enter a denial of service condition. I saw some are codenaming this one Citrix Bleed 2, and this is similar to Citrix's previous flaw named Citrix Bleed, which was used by ransomware gangs and in attacks on governments in particular in 2023 to gain wide-scale access to NetScaler devices and move laterally across corporate environments. I'm pretty sure at that time there was some sort of breach of, I think it was the Dutch government or maybe some Dutch healthcare outfit using this. So certainly this is one you want to be aware of and patch early as possible. BleepingComputer.com suggests that companies should also monitor their NetScaler instances for unusual user sessions, abnormal behavior, and to review access controls. Microsoft is reportedly rolling out a configuration update designed to address a known issue causing Windows updates to fail on some Windows 11 machines. This is with KB 5062324, and it's available for Windows 11 24H2 devices that have not yet applied the May Windows non-security preview update or later updates. So chances are you haven't installed the update that's affected, the non-security preview update, because most would not. So yeah, this could be one to get so you avoid having problems. According to BleepingComputer.com, Microsoft is investigating a known OneDrive issue that is causing searches to appear blank for some users or return no results, even when searching for files they know they've already uploaded. In a support document updated this week, Microsoft shared that this bug impacts Windows, Android, iOS, and web users. Microsoft is working to discover the root cause of these ongoing search problems that are impacting users across most of their OneDrive platforms, and they added that there's no known workaround for those affected and no estimated timeline for fix. Microsoft is also reportedly investigating a separate issue affecting iOS users and causing slow-mo video uploaded to OneDrive to play at normal speed. Microsoft suggests those experiencing this last one to share their video from their iOS gallery to OneDrive instead of manually uploading it or adding it to OneDrive through automatic camera roll backup. So I guess a bit of a rough period for OneDrive. Microsoft has announced plans to periodically remove legacy drivers from the Windows Update catalog to mitigate security and compatibility risks. And I apologize if I already covered the story. I feel like I did, but I didn't want to miss out if I did not. Yeah, that's how my brain is at the moment. I'm a little burned out. But Microsoft said about this development, quote, "The rationale behind this initiative is to ensure that we have the optimal set of drivers on Windows Update that caters to a variety of hardware devices across the Windows ecosystem, while making sure that Microsoft Windows security posture is not compromised. This initiative involves periodic cleanup of drivers from Windows Update, thereby resulting in some drivers not being offered to any systems in the ecosystem. End quote. The first phase of this cleaning up procedure will involve drivers with newer replacements already published on Windows Update. Cleanup refers to expiring drivers by removing their association with an audience in Windows Update and thus preventing them from being offered to any Windows systems. This will be done by deleting the expired driver's audience assignments in the Hardware Development Center. And Microsoft will start by removing legacy drivers and will later expand to include more categories that could be removed to increase security. However, partners may still republish drivers removed by Microsoft during this periodic cleanup process if they can provide a justifiable business reason. Microsoft has announced new Windows 365 security defaults starting in the second half of this year and affecting newly provisioned and re-provisioned cloud PCs. The company said these changes include disabling the clipboard, drive, USB, and printer redirections by default to block users from copying files between cloud PCs and physical devices through clipboard functions to reduce risks of data theft and block malware attacks. However, while USB redirections will be disabled by default, they only target low-level device access, which means that USB mice, keyboards, and web cameras will not be affected since they're managed through high-level redirection. These new security defaults will also be applied to newly created host pools for Azure Virtual Desktop. Microsoft will display notification banners in the Intune Admin Center to alert IT administrators about the changes and allow them to override the new defaults using Intune device configuration policies or group policy objects if their end users require specific redirection capabilities. So this seems like a pretty smart change. But it's only going to affect if you re-provision or provision new cloud PCs. Microsoft announced Windows 365 Frontline Cloud PC in shared mode. And this builds upon the flexible licensing and usage model of Frontline by enabling the provisioning of shared cloud PCs for groups of users to access on an occasional or part-time basis. They say with this, when a user signs in, a new user profile is created to facilitate their task work, and upon sign-out, the user profile is deleted, preparing the device for the next user. Some of the recommended use cases for this shared mode includes retail, manufacturing, and other frontline staff, contractor scenarios where they only really need temporary or occasional access to company resources, or in training lab scenarios. So just making some of the options for Windows 365 cloud PCs that bit more flexible. And another somewhat Windows 365 cloud PC related story, Dizzion announced Dizzion Cloud PC, which is a fixed-price persistent desktop-as-a-service solution designed to make enterprise-grade desktop delivery more accessible, flexible, and cost-predictable. Dizzion's Cloud PC delivers the reliability and familiarity of a traditional desktop with the scalability and agility of the cloud. So Dizzion seemed to be, pivoting, or not pivoting really, just adopting that kind of Windows 365 Cloud PC into their offering. And if you're not familiar with Dizzion, they've got a really great solution for essentially having like a single pane of glass or a single platform for integrating and managing pretty much any cloud desktop or cloud PC. So if you have instances running on different cloud platforms and you want a single way to manage those, Dizzion's a great solution for that. And now it seems they're adding the cloud PC into the mix of offerings through their platform. I'm so glad I do this podcast once a week and not every single day, because this is one of those nightmare stories where I probably would have had to report what the media outlets had been suggesting initially, because it was multiple sources, so it would have seemed somewhat credible at the time, and then have to walk backwards afterwards. But major news outlets started covering a sensationalist story this week of the largest data breach ever, with claims of 16 billion credentials leaked in what was portrayed as a new breach. Well, in reality, this was misreporting. It was really just archives that were published with credentials from previous breaches, not a new breach. So if you got concerned, you're like, oh no, like for sure my credentials are going to be part of this leak. Well, these are older leaks. So if you've changed your passwords from these previous leaks, if you were affected, then your credentials or current credentials probably are not affected by this. But it's still a good idea to make sure that you have updated your passwords if you're affected by these previous breaches. The Register had an interesting story. It has previously reported that after the infamous Post Office Horizon scandal in the UK that I covered on this podcast before, the vendor attached to the project, in this case Fujitsu, stated that they would no longer bid on future UK government contracts unless they were asked to. Northern Ireland subsequently then stated that they asked Fujitsu not to bid on contracts. However, it was stated, I think it was last week, that under applicable legislation in the UK, there are no legal grounds that prevent Fujitsu from expressing an interest in procurement. And this has led a number of members of the UK House of Commons and House of Lords to call on the government to clarify Fujitsu's role in public sector contracting while a public inquiry into the Horizon scandal continues. So it'll be interesting to see if there has actually been some bids on government contracts from Fujitsu since this statement was made where they would not bid unless they were asked to. And also, if they did bid, in which cases were they actually asked to and by who? This could be a powder keg ready to explode. So let's watch this space. According to a report by The Verge, Anthropic is adding a new feature to its Claude AI chatbot that lets you build AI-powered apps right inside the app. The upgrade, launching in beta, builds upon Anthropic's Artifacts feature introduced last year that lets you see and interact with what you ask Claude to make. Early users of the feature have built things like AI-powered games, learning tools, data analysis apps, writing assistants, and even agent workflows that orchestrate multiple Claude calls for complex tasks. Apps will be able to interact with Claude through an API. Anthropic also wants people to share the apps that they make, and they're incentivizing by making it so that somebody else's API usage of your app counts against their subscription, not yours. The feature is available on Anthropic's free, pro, and max tiers. BusinessInsider.com recently reported that 70% of tech leaders who responded to a recent survey said that they plan to expand their teams due to AI advancements. So rather than replacing workers, leaders believe generative AI will enhance productivity and create new roles, especially for people who can effectively work alongside AI tools. The outlook suggests that AI may drive a shift in the types of skills companies prioritize, placing more emphasis on collaboration between humans and machines. So I was actually just interviewed this week for Diary of a Sysadmin by the awesome Fabian Rodriguez. And I talked a little bit about AI, and I kind of drew a comparison to, like, I don't know, 15 plus years ago when all the reports were IT professionals are going to lose their jobs left, right, and center because of cloud computing. And I think I've said this on this podcast before too. But what actually ended up happening was there was even a greater demand for IT professionals, just those with the skill set for successfully and optimally implementing cloud technologies. So I feel like it's probably in the long run going to be similar with AI as well. Yes, it's unfortunate that it seems like tech companies are maybe trying to justify their investment in AI by lowering their headcount currently. But I think ultimately, headcount's probably going to have to increase in order to be successful with AI. Oh, and in that interview, I was kicking myself afterwards because I committed a sin that I've pointed out other people doing as well. I conflated AI with generative AI. So I was talking about generative AI, but I was just calling it AI in general, which, yeah, put myself on the naughty step for that one. But yeah, I'm looking forward to sharing that interview with everyone once it's been published. And yeah, I'll probably share it on this podcast when it does get published. But now, this episode's scripts, tricks, and tips. So I don't know if this first one is a tip, and maybe it could have just been a story instead, but I recently saw a report about an increase in employees essentially working around the clock because they're always connected, they're always checking email, and they replied to messages throughout the entire day, which is a good way to burn out, and I'm probably guilty of that a little bit myself. So I guess the tip here from this story is compartmentalize and try to give yourself breaks. Finally, sadly, a member of our community, Steve Beaumont, has shared that he was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And unfortunately, given the change in circumstances in his life, it reads like he was somewhat recently married and moved into a new home. But his life assurance policy has been declined because he got the diagnosis for the cancer just before the life assurance policy would basically take hold. So unfortunately, he's facing into this very serious stage 4 cancer without the reassurance that if he does die, that his family will be taken care of from a life assurance policy. So because of this, he has started a GoFundMe that you can donate to, and I'll share a link to the GoFundMe with this episode. If you do have some money to spare, please do share. I mean, Steve has been a member of the community. He has put his time and effort in sharing his work with people in the community. He's been at conferences, and I'm sure we've all received value from his time and his contributions. So now would be a really good time to give back. But that's it for this episode of the podcast. I'll catch you next week.